and it's apparently because I'm still learning how to pour a beer. My God. Shameful, disgusting. Not shameful nor disgusting was some of you and your selections on who the Texans should take in the second round of the NFL draft. They don't have a first round pick, obs. So I was going to react to a mock draft, but I get tired of looking through 2-round mock drafts. So I went and I wanted to look at some of the simulated drafts and the tools that different websites use. So I just plucked PFFs, and they had a little article where they showed who the most common pick was by people using the mock draft simulator on their site. And I was pleased. No matter what any of you might think about PFF themselves and the grades or anything like that, the people that have been doing mock drafts on there selected Braden Fiske with number 42, and they selected Xavier Legette, the wide receiver out of South Carolina, at number 59. This is interesting too. The Braden Fiske ended up being really popular later in the second round. So the Texans, I don't know if you want to read deep into it and look at various mock drafts and everything. Braden Fiske ends up going higher than that, but I would be really excited with both of these guys. I think the upside is tremendous. Braden Fiske is undersized, but incredibly quick. Has a lot of upside still in some of the parts of his game where I can see that he can develop, but that also was playing at Western Michigan for his first 4 years, then transferred to Florida State last year. So against a higher level of competition, I think there was some adjustment there, and is particular to the size and the athleticism of the offensive line he was facing. And he still did incredibly well. I just still think there's upside there. Xavier Legette, there's a lot of obvious upside because he is huge, athletic, had 4 years where he didn't do much at all at South Carolina, and then all of a sudden in his 5th year, he just exploded. So I'm excited about the possibilities of these guys. Like, obviously, this is not a real draft. If this is how it ended up going, then I'd be super cool with it. As far as Braden Fiske goes, I think some of where I've been skeptical is on his body size. And I wanted to go, and I knew Bo Allen, who used to play for the Eagles and was a teammate of D'Amico Ryan's. He was a defensive tackle, and he does some work for the Green Light podcast, Chris Long's Green Light podcast. So I want to watch a few plays that he broke down. I just condensed these for you because I think Bo makes some really good points. And then I'll show some clips from the LSU game where, upon rewatching it, I actually feel a lot better about Braden Fiske's performance in that game. So I just want to just show you just like how really polished this kid is and how explosive he is in a lot of ways.
So I've talked about some.
This is Bo Allen. I've got the clip to the Green Light podcast below. And Bo just does like little guest appearances on there. I don't know. He should have his own YouTube channel. Maybe I'll try to get him on the show.
These wham.
I won't try. I will. I'm going to get Bo Allen on the show.
Trap plays that offenses like to run against 4 down. So what that means is you get a back block here. This dude's climbing here. He's blocking out here. And then this dude's coming to trap him. So watch him beat this back block.
And really, like, watch Braden Fiske right here, the right defensive tackle. This is impressive.
Out of a 2-eye. Look at this explosiveness. So nice for a TFL. Really.
I thought he skipped a frame right there. That's Aaron Donald, J.J. Watt type quickness.
Really, really impressive play here. And that's
like right there. His hands are on point. Like, if he tries that swim, just like with J.J. Watt, if you try that quick swim, but you're not fast enough, you're just going to get taken for a ride.
So that 1.68 10-yard split and that 40 comes out, just the ability to get off the ball and penetrate. Here he is right here, Braden Fiske, number 55. He's a 3 technique away from the back. Watch him split this double team with get off. Really, really nice.
Okay, so this is one of the downsides, or at least one of the knocks on Braden Fiske has been, okay, how well does he hold up the double teams? Right here, this is very, very good.
Nice. Boom. Splits it, gets off, makes a huge stop on 3rd and 2 here to get his defense off the field. Here's Braden Fiske. Jared Verse, number 5, is a top edge guy. He's a super, super good rusher. What you're going to see here is an ET game. The end goes first, and then the tackle wraps around and goes second. I want you to watch, first of all, number 5, Verse, how violent he is. getting up the field first and then just penetrating that B gap. And then watch Fiske here wrap really tight and his ability to bend mid rep here during this play. Just check this out.
Okay, so the other good thing to point out here is Fiske does a good job of taking that huge step to the inside to keep the guard anchored right there. Look at how big that hole is for Verse to be able to go through. And then Verse does a really good job of then like unselfishly teeing off on the guard, which clears the way. It also helps him ricochet back up to it. This is really well executed.
That's such a nice play. I'm going to run.
I'll end up being a little bit more nitpicky about this because there's one thing that right there where Braden Fiske, what you got to do ideally in the NFL after some experience, never turn out to look for Jared Verse number 5. Because as soon as you like right there look, a better guard, you know what, he's throwing right there. I'll excuse this because it's wide open for him. This is really nice. Coming tight right there too, instead of looping around wide the way they draw it up on the diagram. That's a big lesson that I didn't learn until I got duped by the quarterback for the Bengals when I came around wide. I should have had a sack my rookie year, but I came around wide and he just came up right underneath him. That's really good. He's got a lot of polish. Okay, so here, if you watch, he's the right defensive tackle. There we go. One of the things I'd been concerned about was just his ability to stand up to double teams. And then against LSU, there were times where he got stuck on the line that I was a little bit concerned about. I'm less concerned after having watched this another couple times. Son of a bitch. Just a minute there. Guess I just wanted you guys to have some extra Bo Allen time. So that right there, that's the hardest thing with that big old tackle caving down on you, to keep your gap right there and keep your feet. He does a really good job versus really big physical offensive line. 2-eye technique. There's another time where it's kind of tough to maintain your leverage. It just invites double teams. Oh, and this one, I think there's a tendency here where he might have really wanted to cross face, but he stays, keeps his leverage. He's in on the tackle. Doesn't make the tackle himself. It's a big part of the stop. Again, 2-eye technique. Fights across. Makes it like this is physical stuff versus a physical offensive line. Here at a TE game where he's coming upfield, he does a really nice job unselfishly making the pick. These guys are well coached, just like the UT defensive linemen are really well coached. This is the one where he looks out. See 55 there, the left defensive tackle. He looks, that gives the right guard. You see the right guard's head turns out now. That's a little bit of the polish that he's got to get better at. That's just a matter of trust and timing and everything else like that. So those guys blocked it up well. This is very nitpicky by me. The one thing I was concerned about when you start looking at, okay, why doesn't this guy as athletic as he is go in the first round? There are a lot of times where in the pass rush versus double teams, he just gets stuck at the line of scrimmage. He kind of lets his pad level get high. And you can see these guys. It's not that you're expected to get a sack when you get double teamed, but you got to get some push. And he just too often doesn't get pushed there. He's so active and he's so athletic that I don't think it's going to be a problem. I think this is something that comes along naturally when he learns just a little bit better how to anticipate some of these things. And if he doesn't, I mean, again, that's why he goes in the second round. But right there, he just stays really active. 2-eye technique, very active, and he keeps working. He's stuck at the line of scrimmage. So that's where the Senior Bowl, just a few clips here, because I know he won like the award for kid who worked the hardest at the Senior Bowl. People really liked him. But you can see when he's one-on-one and he's got quick hands and can just keep working, he really does a nice job. So the Texans right there. Okay, let me tell you something about this. These run drills. Offensive linemen claim that pass rush one-on-one drills are unfair to them. I think they're whining. Defensive linemen will complain about these one-on-one run blocking drills because these offensive linemen have nobody else to block or worry about, no blitz to worry about, no linebacker to scrape off to. So they just maul the dude. And I thought he did a pretty good job. To give him athletically a comparison, look at Aaron Donald. Like the 40, obviously Aaron Donald's a freak of nature, but a tenth of a second faster in the 40. But for Braden Fiske, who's taller, a little bit heavier, but not as thick built as Aaron Donald. A lot of comparables athletically, especially when you look at the vertical, the broad jump, the shuttle. Those are the things that are really that short area quickness. That's matches the eyeball test with what you've seen. So I think, and again, look at the spider graph. Look, all the athletic stuff is off the charts. It's all of the physical size things like the wingspan, the weight, the arm length, the hand size, the height, the bench press. All of those are kind of subpar, but otherwise athletically, he's freakish. I don't usually worry too much about bench press, but when you add it to tendency to maybe not be as strong as you'd like, then that's where I get a little bit nervous. I know that one of you the other day had commented that you thought maybe, or it was a comment on Twitter, that D'Amico probably prefers the smaller, lighter defensive tackles, 295-pound guys. I'm not 100% sold on that, just because, DeForest Buckner he's not that heavy, but he's huge, very tall. Eric Armstead, same thing, 6'7", 295, but he's 6'7". He's a big dude. So I have no way of knowing exactly like if D'Amico would want to take Braden Fiske in the second round. I'd be surprised if he didn't. Maybe they wouldn't want to take him until number 59. But that same simulation, let's see. We need DT. D'Amico will demand a DT to finish his front push, right? I don't know if he'll demand it. I think he's you've got, this is the problem with the draft. There are 7 rounds. You've got, I lose track of how many picks the Texans have right now. There's 22 positions on the team. There's several open spots where you feel like obviously in the defensive backfield, defensive tackle, tight end, like as a second tight end, interior offensive line. It's a lot harder to say, no, you have to get this position if guys aren't there. The guys that you like aren't there when you've got a chance to draft them. So I think he's going to really prefer that they take one, but he's also talked in the past about how, it's really important to understand and recognize the entire team. When he was a defensive coach and they would ask for his input in San Francisco, he would realize sometimes like, okay, this defensive player that I really want, it's just not going to happen this year because they need this offensive player. So I don't know if he'll demand it. Sounds like he prefers more muscle than mass. That's a good way to put it, Gennaro. I like that. Height to bat down passes. Yeah, and get in passing lanes and just make things tough. Yeah, I know one of you had mentioned that these guys haven't been on the top 30 visits. A lot of times guys that get drafted won't take the team won't request them on the top 30 because the team already feels good about them or feels like they know everything that they need to know about them. For some of the other positions, they just might feel like, man, I just can't get a beat on this guy. I want to talk to him more, or maybe they didn't get to hook up earlier for some reason. So I try not to read too much into that. So as far as number 59, Xavier Legette, here's Steve Smith talking about Xavier Legette. Just real quick, for those of you who don't know, 225 pounds, played 5 years at South Carolina. In his first 4 seasons, he had like 460 yards combined, did hardly anything at all. And then all of a sudden in his 5th season, he got that COVID year exemption, in his 5th season, just blew it out of the park. He had 33 receptions of over 15 yards, like just explosive plays all over the place. But they also used him in the short area with screens out of the backfield. So a lot of comparisons to Deebo Samuel. Steve Smith here, I think, makes a comparison to DK Metcalf.
Just move, and there's a lot.
Oh, no.
Back block out of a
crap.
2-eye.
I don't know why I keep showing you Bo Allen so much. Apologize. So a little teaser from Steve Smith first.
Man can just move, and there's a lot of muscles following him.
That's what it is. He can just flat out move, and there's a lot of muscles following him. Josh Norris from Underdog Fantasy kind of gave a nice rundown of his saga.
I actually went back and watched a bunch of his other 4 years at South Carolina, and like the first couple, his hands were just awful. That likely led to a total lack of trust with him and the coaching staff.
That was another thing, obviously.
The quarterback being awful before Spencer Rattler did not help. And then when you got to 2022, when Spencer Rattler was there, he dropped a lot of like adjustment catches or tip balls that then led to interceptions on off frame balls. So again, because of that, I think it prohibited the coaching staff from allowing him to have extended playing time game in and game out.
The reason I said
so that part, I'm totally cool with that. I think sometimes when you see a guy that all of a sudden has one huge year of production, you worry about whether it was just chance or what have you. There were a lot of variables with Legette, including the fact that he played quarterback in high school. He had a rough go of it growing up. Both his parents died within 5 years of each other when he was in high school. Had to deal with some injury issues when he was in college, different coaches. He had those drops, and I think just either a lack of coaching or development or what have you, didn't really run a complete route tree. And then all of a sudden last year, I think the addition of Spencer Rattler helped over the last couple of years. Started just running the complete route tree. His hands weren't an issue. He had 2 drops last year. And I think some of that was play calling too. Credit to the South Carolina coaches. That's the one. The hands are a big question mark. And I know one thing that he wanted to really address in his pro day and in his combine workouts. So that's a work in progress. He'd shown improvement on it, but he's just a big physical beast of a dude. The Deebo Samuel comparisons are really interesting. Here's Steve Smith on him.
you remind me of DK.
DK Metcalf.
Is when DK was in college, coming out of college, everybody saw this big burly guy running some of these routes. I think Xavier has a little bit more on his route tree that DK had coming out of college. The young man can just move, and there's a lot of muscles following him.
I just like that part. When you watch him, I'm going to show some highlights here at the end. And because it's a live stream and I don't want the live stream to get shut down by copyright, I had a hard time finding the plays that I could show the complete play because they go to him deep a lot. So when you start thinking about him potentially being used like Deebo Samuel, perhaps in the backfield or in the short game, but then also being used on deep play action, and also by having a personal relationship through South Carolina with Deebo Samuel, which he talks about in a little bit later there. So like Deebo obviously knows this system in and out. I think that can be an asset for the Texans by way of Deebo Samuel. It's hard for me not to get excited about this. And I know. I mean, I don't even have to look at the comments. I know what you're all saying. They don't need a wide receiver. I know, but I don't know if Steve Smith's going to be here longer than a year. Nico Collins is going to be a free agent next year. I trust that he'll be here. But if you're going to look for a guy that might have huge upside, but needs some work developmentally and really could probably use almost a redshirt year, this might be the guy. I don't know if he's going to end up going higher than this, but his physical skills and traits are so impressive. And I think some teams are going to be scared off by the fact that it was just one really good year. There's a chance that somebody takes him higher. If he's there at 59, even if, if there's a good defensive back there, I can't turn that guy down. But man, the people have spoken. This is who the people want.
6.4
one more, just another little bit from Underdog Guys on his stats.
yards after catch per reception is awesome to include that 13 average depth of target that you talked about. A 3.15 yards per route run is basically 5th best in this entire wide receiver class. Credited with just 2 drops this year, despite what we saw in the first 4 years. 47 of his catches went for first downs.
105 yards per game, 3.2 yards per route run. And then also he's an exceptional kick returner as well. So a crazy athlete and an even crazier story.
So these guys I linked below as well.
I'm not sure if
real bright guys. It's as I said before, it's Josh Norris and is it Hayden Winks, I believe.
He's like a consistent catcher. Yeah. There's a couple times where he's catching it with his body. There's a couple bobbled catches in the mix there as well. And I think one of the reasons why they manufactured so many touches for him is because it's a little bit easier to work out in space underneath like that.
Okay, so this is as far as what Hayden was just saying there, yeah, is he a natural catcher of the football? No, he catches with his body. I think he still needs more polish with that. And that's up to a lot of individual coaches and scouts how they feel about the ability to do that. Remember, Terrell Owens always had suspect hands. It didn't when you make up for it with as many other things, then it's not as big a deal, especially in the second round. This is Xavier Legette talking about Deebo Samuel himself. I think he answers two questions here, actually.
What did you want to show the scouts the most today? That I could run every route.
So the question was, what did you want to show the scouts the most today? And this is at his pro day. He says that I could run every route.
In the route tree, I feel like we put that together here as well. I had a couple drops, but I was able to overcome those.
You talked about before the season being able to work out with Deebo Samuel. I mean, how much did you talk with him or some of the former Gamecocks to be able to help you through these last couple months?
Oh, man. Me working out with him, man, I say, man, it kind of changed my mindset in a way, man. I'm just getting more focused, man. And like a lot of people, they be trying to compare me to him. Even when I'm in the meetings with the coaches from different teams, they also try to compare me to him, man. But I want to make a name for myself.
Okay, so at the very end there, you started to hear a little bit of that country South Carolina accent creep in when I was in meetings with different coaches from different teams. He was the one that some of you might remember that he went viral right around the combine or so, around senior day, because of an interview that was done with him. I feel like he got too much attention for that, and he's tried to decountrify himself, because this was the interview. Usually I try to link these interviews, but this is from the Titans website and they can go die. But this is the interview where he sounds more like the Xavier Legette that I want to hear.
What would you say are the best parts of your game that help you get into the end zone so often?
Oh, man, I'd say the deep ball, man. But I really feel like any way that I get the ball in my hand, I could get it to that end zone.
Yeah, a deep ball, which is true. His deep ball is scary as hell, which obviously it's not always there. He wasn't used a lot over the middle. He had some really nice highlights when they did use him over the middle, but it was a lot of short area stuff and a lot of deep stuff. And but he did run the entire route tree. He was a much more polished receiver this year. I think they're going to see a lot of room for growth there. As far as him like being super country, one of my little pet theories, which I will never bother to back up with science or anything, is that I do think guys from the country, just because there tends to be a higher trust factor in general when you just grow up and live out in the country, because there's three mechanics in town. They're not working on SEO optimization. Those mechanics all know that they got to do right by you, or they're going to have a bad reputation. People can kind of trust that what you say you're going to do and vice versa, or you get a bad reputation if you don't. Suburbs, city, not quite necessarily that same level of trust. So there's a trust factor there. And I feel like Xavier Legette, combined with CJ Stroud and DeMeco Ryans, will be a triumvirate of trust. In a way, I'm probably doing some kind of Illuminati thing there. Apologies to any Illuminati that are watching me. I'm guessing it's like 27% Illuminati on this stream right now. Here's the highlights. Okay, so I think this was the one that was I think this one was over the middle. Yeah. So he's a deep ball guy and a short area guy, right? Except for this right here where he catches one, 7 yards past the line of scrimmage, and then just takes it off into the swamps of South Carolina. Deep ball, run after catch. I mean, a lot of his run after the catch, it's not like he has to break a ton of tackles because he's just so fast and strong. I mean, there's a little bit of a nice push off there. Contested balls. Like, I don't mean to make it sound like look, his hands work. It's not like he can't make those catches, right? Remember,
the Texans are so all in.
Oh, hold on a second. That's a macro dosing podcast with Arian Foster. I don't know if we're going to have time for it or not, but I think if you think about, why am I blanking? Damn it. On our Notre Dame receiver that had dropped problems in college and then not so much in the NFL. That damn beer with too much head on it. I think he's shown evidence that he can work on it and that he can prove there. I would be I would be stoked, man. Yes, they need more defensive backs. They need that's you can't not love him when you watch these interviews of Xavier Legette in we need to encourage him to just be comfortable speaking as he was raised to speak the entire time that he's here. Will Fuller, thank you. My God, I'm an expert. Do you think the Texans would do best just selecting BPA each round for this draft? Yes, but I've always been jealous of the Ravens because the Ravens are the team that's closest to just sticking to best player available, and they do it almost no matter what, even if it's in the first round or what have you. There's a lot of times where they'll go and draft somebody that it's at a position they're already strong at. They're also very good, at collecting all those compensatory picks. They do a lot of the really hard things right, like the things that take a lot of self-discipline. It takes a lot of humility to take who you think is the best player available, because you have to understand and recognize that, like, all right, I really need a defensive back, but if I go and try to find the best defensive back, there's a really good chance that I'm going to reach. And when you do that time and time again, like, let's say, okay, I really want a defensive back. I'm just plucking that as a position, and it's late second round, and maybe the best defensive back available is the guy that you would have taken at the top of the third. Maybe you try to trade back, but you can't, so you take him. And okay, right? That's no big deal, right? It's like your first snort of cocaine. That's what that is. It's your first little bump. Then all of a sudden, you're selling everything off because you sold everything for your damn defensive back because you didn't take best player available. So you got to try to find a balance. When teams say that they take the best player available, this is interesting. And I didn't know this until a few years ago. I got finally a straight answer on this from a scout, which is that they take the best player available, but their boards are tweaked by which players they need. So it makes it simpler in that, yeah, they're going by their draft board and they're saying, oh, okay, yeah, we'll take our best player available. But the board has already been tweaked. So we're like, all right, we're a team that needs a tight end, or we're a team that needs an offensive tackle. You adjust that board. So it's somewhere in between where we probably want it to be. Let's see. All right, let's watch macrodosing. Let's have a little palate cleanser here at the end of this. I've been trying to hold these to a half hour. This is macrodosing with PFF commenter and Arian Foster. It's their podcast. And PFF commenter had some nice things to say about the Texans being all in. But then Arian made an interesting point that I'd never really thought about the Texans and their strategy through the years in this way.
All in like the Texans.
Yeah. Shout out to Miko, man.
The Texans are so all in right now. There's no team that's going all in like the Texans.
Yeah. Shout out to Miko, man, doing his thing, man. But see, Houston has always done this, dog, except for this last part, right? They've always done extremely well building through the draft. They've always, and if you look at the history of Houston, they have drafted winners, dog. I'm talking about Hall of Famers, perennial Pro Bowlers, perennial All Pro people. Like they do that, but then they always let them go, and then they'll never like get high quality free agents. That was always the knock I had with management. But it seems like they turning that shit around. Like
undrafted free agents, they have a great track record with, though.
True.
They let the riff-raff in every now and then, you know what I'm saying?
But then they let him walk.
And then they let him walk. But I was atheist then. Now I'm Christian.
Yep. The second coming of Arian Foster.
Yeah.
They're gonna be calling you tomorrow.
Right on time, because as y'all know, it's gonna happen soon. He is coming back.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's hard to tell with Arian what he's joking about and what he isn't, which is one of the reasons I like him. I suffer from the same malady, but I don't know if he's not an atheist anymore, or if he was joking about it and something happened or whatever. Now I gotta dig deep and go back and watch the entire episode. I hadn't seen that part when we added it earlier. I don't know. Does that jibe with your perception of things? I think the Texans for a long time were awesome at first round picks. Like Rick Smith was nails with first round picks. He was really, really good. I know it sounds simple, like, oh yeah, it's first round picks. 50% of first round picks don't work out. And he had a really good record on that. There's kind of the blue collar part of it that was lacking. A lot of the middle class in the through even the good teams with the Texans. It was, Andre Johnson had mentioned that in 2013 he felt like it might end up being a letdown of a season because he had seen in 2012 how many starters were playing on special teams, which is kind of an indication that the rank and file on your team isn't all that talented if you got that many starters playing special teams. So I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that or not, but it's an aggressive splurge. I get nervous with aggressive splurges because more often than not, they don't work out. I think Nick has done it in measured doses, though, and he's done it strategically. So I feel good about it. It's not the most exorbitant splurge. It's not like the Patriots a few years ago when they outspent everybody by like $50 million. So really appreciate you guys coming through. I'm sorry I couldn't get to more of the comments. I'll stop adding so much video in because then I don't get to the comments as much. And really appreciate it, though. I'm Seth Payne, played for the Texans a long time ago. Now I do sports radio on Sports Radio 610 in Houston. Like, subscribe, tell a friend. Everybody have an awesome, awesome day. And I'll do another mock draft here over the next couple days.